We're back with episode 4 of Build Better Batteries, a series that dives deep into the real world complexities behind battery materials and cell projects. I'm Tolu Aribisala, your host, and with me here is our very own Duarte Dorego, operational readiness specialist, who's going to be talking to us about how seemingly small decisions could compound into major operational risk.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's dive in. What does operational readiness really mean in battery manufacturing?
Well, for me, operational readiness is about ensuring that we've got capable people, capable systems and equipment right at the beginning of startup. When you see a successful operation, it's not accidental. It's based on sound disciplines, operational readiness strategies, and a plan that is well executed. I like to think of operational readiness can be broken up into 3 phases. There's the value add phase, which is early on in the design, involving operational readiness early to look at how the future operations is going to operate and ensure that that is integrated into the design. The second one is the value protecting. This is when you've developed the strategies and the plan, and now you're just protecting the plan, you're working the plan, and ensuring that everything's well integrated. You get in a great transition from construction into operations, into the future operations. The third is then, once you've done that, is the value realization. And that is based on your sound operational readiness strategies that you're putting in place. As we know, on the battery industry, there's a lot of tight tolerances and processes that need to be met. For example, if you look at cathode coating on foils, which passes through a coating machine that has to apply the exact tension on the rolls across the width and length of that foil, the slightest deviation will cause you downstream defects. And that will only get picked up a lot later, which can result in a lot of scrap. And then that has to be put back through the value chain at huge expense to the operations. So you might have a facility that is really well designed, but if you don't have operators that actually can pick up these nuances or these deviations and react, or if you don't have maintenance strategies that are effective, your plant's not going to perform. For me, operational readiness is not just a milestone or a checklist. It's a mindset to a successful operation.
So what are some of the most common risks that we encounter?
Good question. For me, in a lot of the major projects I've been involved in, it's all about training. As you know, in the battery industry, it's not just about one catastrophic event that happens. There's lots of little individual cascading events that might occur to a defect. So you really need operators to be trained to understand that. And that process really starts from a recruitment. You need to recruit people with the right skill sets and the competencies. You then need to develop material and deploy the material. And it's not just deploying this material for them to understand how to read a procedure or follow a procedure. You're really requiring them to have that sixth sense, of being able to pick something up that's deviating from specification. The other risk is around maintenance and what maintenance strategies you have. If you don't have, especially in the battery industry, if you don't have effective preventative and predictive maintenance systems, that allow your maintainers or operators to start picking up, or identifying failure modes and everything, this will impact your performance. Other opportunities that are missed, and there are also risks, is not involving operational readiness in the early phase, as I mentioned before, that add value phase. Bringing in experienced operators or subject matter experts early into the design who understand the future operation requirements and the nuances that need to be addressed or visualized. They need to bring those concepts into the design for that plant to be successful during operation.
Should we be wary of duplicating designs from other regions?
Absolutely. This is a trap I see many projects fall into, believing that they can just replicate a facility that's doing well in one geographical area, and then they can just replicate that in another area. There are nuances between workforce skills, infrastructure maturity, regulatory environment, and even supply chain dynamics from one region to another differs, and those differences matter. Operational readiness helps strategize those contextual gaps and puts in strategies in place to mitigate them. So, for example, a process that requires highly skilled operators in one region, that might not translate to the same skill set in another region. So that operational readiness needs to pick up those nuances and close those gaps. It's similar in maintenance, in even quality systems or equipment tuning. In different regions, the capabilities and constraints might be different, and these need to all be considered and strategized in the operational readiness plan. Think of it like a chess game. A chess master doesn't win a game by just copying his previous moves from a previous game. He'll look at the local content and he'll strategize ahead to win the game. Similar in the battery industry, we can't just copy and replicate a process from another geographical area. We've got to understand the local context in order for that plant to be successful. And this is what operational readiness does. It closes those nuances or adapts your strategy to the local context.
What due diligence should be applied to proactively mitigate risk before it becomes a problem?
Spotting risk requires transparency, integration, and discipline through all the phases of the project. Now, in operational readiness, we will have a lot of different stakeholders that are required in order for the plan to be successful. Having these stakeholders work in silos is a recipe for disaster. So you really need to be able to integrate or have a single source of truth of all your stakeholders and have a unified approach. So having systems and processes that allow you to have a single source of truth, like work management systems that allow you to do this, or milestone mapping platforms that allow you to do true integration in understanding how everybody's work affects each other in order to be ready for a set milestone date. And quite often that is in operational readiness is when you start load commissioning or start into operations. This is vital for success of an operational readiness strategy. But it's not just about tools and processes as well. To be successful, at Hatch, we will bring in a lot of our subject matter experts early on in the design. These are people that will understand the future operations, risks, and what needs to be incorporated into the designs early. Tools such as our work management system or our milestone mapping platforms are essential to the success of our operational readiness. These single sources of truth surface any potential risks throughout the phases of the project. It's fact-based, data-driven decision-making, not emotional or reactive responses.
And what are misconceptions you run into when it comes to operational readiness?
Quite often, when you say to somebody, we've got to do an operational readiness plan, a lot of people just straight away just think of, it's standard operating procedures, or it's a training manual, or it's maintenance work instructions. Operational readiness is a lot more to that. People don't quite realize that for you to be successful, you need to consider all aspects of the business. So yes, not only production, maintenance, but supply chain, marketing, finance, all your regulatory requirements and permits, if it's outbound, inbound logistics, all your systems and IT, OT, how they all integrate. It's a lot more complicated than just a standard operating procedure that you need to develop. And all of this work needs to be integrated.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share those insights. This was really interesting. And we've come to the end of this episode. Until next time.